Being an A1 level in any language is enough to be able to communicate and travel around when you're abroad. It's a common misconception for people to think that an A1 level is just basic greetings or self-introduction, or even thinking that A1 means that you're as fluent as your native tongue. I'm here to share with you what it really takes to become an A1 level. I was able to get to that A1 level proficiency in French by taking the DELF A1 exam and unofficially with Vietnamese and Korean. There's the model called the CEFR, which stands for the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, and that's the common standard that's used to assess what language level you're at, and it also is used to develop curriculum, language learning material. So there are 6 broad categories to say which level you're at. So A1 being the most, beginning level, all the way up to C2, which C2 is like the mastery level, like fluent level. In order to be at an A1 level, there are certain criteria that you have to meet to reach that level. A lot of people think that in order to become A1, they just need to be able to introduce themselves or say basic greetings, like being able to say 안녕하세요, 감사합니다, 화장실 어디예요? I guess, it's a good starting point for your language learning, but that's not really enough to be able to communicate with the people around you. After doing a lot of research and going through my own experiences, I realized what it takes to become an A1 level is a lot more than what people expect it to be. The CEFR measures your language ability in 4 areas, which is listening, reading, writing, and speaking. If you can't do one of those areas, then you actually don't officially meet the criteria for A1. So for example, you have the JLPT, which is the Nihongo Norikusiken, the Japanese language proficiency exam. That test specifically measures your reading comprehension abilities, and it also measures your listening comprehension abilities, but it doesn't test your writing and it doesn't test your speaking. So even if you pass N1, which is considered to be the hardest level for Japanese proficiency, their speaking skills may not be at that same level. So that's why I prefer the format like the DELF exam, the French exam, because it actually tests you on all 4 areas, so you know exactly what level you are. It does make the test more difficult to pass because you have to be proficient in all 4 areas, but I think that's going to be a more accurate representation of your language abilities. When you look at the general idea of what it takes to be an A1 level, the items can be very vague. For example, understanding basic expressions, or introducing yourself, asking questions about personal details, or interacting with someone when someone's speaking slowly and clearly. So it doesn't exactly tell you what does that mean you need to know. But after taking the DELF A1, I realized how much was involved in order for me to pass the A1. When I took the DELF A1 exam back in December last year, I remember getting a speaking activity where I had to buy a pair of shoes. And during that conversation, I had to ask for a certain pair of shoes for a specific color, size. If they ran out of a size, you had to ask for a different one. And then you have to pay for it. And then it may be cash or credit. So you have to actually know a lot of vocabulary and a lot of different sentence structures in order to be able to have that conversation just about buying shoes. And then I remember I got a second conversation that I didn't end up choosing because I didn't feel like I was confident in the vocabulary. But I remember I had to go to a cafeteria and you have to order a set meal, and then you have to, figure out the prices of the different items and then the total price. So there was a lot involved with that conversation. So that's why I think, the A1 level expects a lot out of you in terms of your fluency of the language, and, they expect you to be able to be, fluent in all 4 areas, the reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So that's why I really like the format of the DELF. It took me about 3 months to prepare for the DELF A1 exam. And I feel like that was enough time for me to be able to confidently pass the A1. That's why I think it's reasonably possible for anyone who wants to go overseas and have enough language ability to speak with the people around them, that the A1 level is sufficient enough. I know this is more unofficial official, but I had gone to Vietnam back in April of this year, and I went for 2 weeks specifically for an internship experience where I got to volunteer at a hospital and see their process of integrating Western and Eastern medicine together. And I really enjoyed that experience and learned a lot from it. And I really hope that, back in the US, we can have that same idea of merging the Western and Eastern medicine together. But before I went on that trip, I really wanted to be able to speak with the locals a little bit or be able to help my friends, navigate over there. So 3 or 4 months before the trip, I took some lessons on italki with, 1 or 2 different tutors. I was listening to more Vietnamese on YouTube or listening to different shows, just to expose myself more to the Vietnamese language. And then when I got to Vietnam, I was actually able to do things like take my friends to a restaurant and be able to, ask for a certain number of people for a table. I was able to read the menu because I could read the language, and I was able to ask questions about it to the waiter, or if anyone had any food restrictions, I was able to ask the waiter, does this have pork in it? Does this have beef in it? And then we were able to order, the right dishes for people. But mind you, my sentence structures were still basic, simple, but it was able to get the job done. And so that really helped me and the people I was around to get our needs met while we were there. So just the 3 or 4 months of me learning Vietnamese really took me a long way while I was there. I would really like to take the Vietnamese language proficiency exam, which is known as the NLTV, which stands for Năng Duc Tiếng Việt, which is just a kind of direct translation of Vietnamese proficiency language exam. However, the exam is only offered in Vietnam, South Korea, and Taiwan. So unless I'm going there in the near future, I'm probably not going to go there just to take the exam. The other language that I'm doing this for is with Korean. So I did take the TOPIK 1 exam last year in October. Here's the score. So it tells you how you did in listening, it tells you how you did in reading, and I passed the level 1 and I got the highest grade, which was the Igu. So it sort of translates to being like an A2 level. But then after I took the exam, I sort of stopped studying. I wasn't really exposing myself too much other than just listening to a lot of content. I wasn't practicing really the speaking or the writing or anything. And then I just found out that my cousins want to go on a family trip to Korea this December. And so that sort of motivated me to be like, okay, if I want to be able to help them get around, I should bring up my Korean skills again. So I'm continuing to listen to my Korean variety shows, but now I'm starting back with my lessons. I'm also using the Hippo Family Club CDs that I mentioned about in my previous video, labeled 21 Languages, 1 Community. Why do I think that being an A1 is a big deal? There are, 2 sides of this scenario where some people may think that they only need to know how to introduce themselves or say hello and goodbye and that's enough. And some people think that you need to be, as fluent as your native language to be able to communicate with the locals, when in reality, just being at that A1 level that the CEFR defines, I feel like is good enough to get around and to be able to communicate with the people in that country. I believe that it's worth it to reach that A1 level so that you can be comfortable when you're traveling around. If you want to learn more about my language journey, please subscribe to my channel and click the like button below. Thank you. Bye-bye.